had the problem. Thank you.
I'm so glad it came on when we were doing that. Oh, I do got to tell you a funny story. So today we go to church this morning, and Cope loves, both our kids love going to church. They think Sunday school is like the coolest thing in the whole world, which is a blessing. Like, it's because there's no fighting on Saturday nights. They're like, oh, we're going to church. What time are we going?
Yeah.
So there's a teacher. I think he also has a little bit of a crush, maybe on his teacher.
That helps. That helps.
It does a little bit, right? Well, and he may not even have a crush, but he thinks she's awesome. So every time he's like, Miss Kendall going to be there, Miss Kendall, and then when he gets there, she's like, what's up, and so it's like a cool thing. So every time we get out of church, me and Casey, like, I'm not taking my kids to like just let them color. I don't want them to just color. Like, let me tell you what you learned about. Well, one time he said Jesus, and I was like, oh, that's awesome, buddy. And so now every time I ask, that's what they both say. They both say, Jesus. What'd y'all learn about today? Jesus. And they think, ooh, done. We're moving on. And I'm like, no, y'all. I mean, I can't say, no, y'all didn't learn about Jesus every time, because, like, I want them to learn about Jesus. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, all right, well, tell me more about it. He said, Dad, there was this pear tree. And I said, so then I really tuned in, because I've never heard about the pear tree in the whole Bible. Now, I haven't read the whole Bible, but I don't know a lot about the pear tree. And I said, all right, yeah, the pear tree. And he goes, and there was a man and a woman. I can't remember their names. And he said, but this snake, he made the woman, she ate the pear. Then the guy, he ate the pear. Then the snake bit him.
Got him.
And that's where he stopped. He said the snake bit him. And then he was like, that's what I learned today.
Can't trust a snake.
Me and Casey were laughing so hard, and I got to thinking, well, you got the details, like, you got the gist of it, but you got some of the details. But I was like, dude, that's so awesome that you picked up on that. I mean, the story was not right, but it was like, you could tell somebody that's in the church that story, and they'd be like, oh, he's talking about Adam and Eve. Okay, I got it. So I think that gave a little bit of momentum. So we went back tonight to what's called it's cross church together. So they take all three campuses. You meet at the Springdale location. So there's probably, I'd say there's like a couple thousand people there. And maybe not that many. It may have been like 700, but it just feels like a lot. And so we go in, and it's just one of those, when you go there, the Holy Spirit immediately, you can feel it. The first song that hits, you're like, this isn't like church service. And the preacher brought it up the best, because he was like, there's a movement in here when we do this, because it's not an obligation. Like Sunday mornings, sometimes it feels like an obligation. He said, you may be there for the right reasons, but you could be sitting around a bunch of people who their mom made them come, or they feel like, it's Sunday, that's what I need to do, or we're in the South. And when you come to something like this, you know that for the most part, everybody around you, you're here for the same thing. Like, you want to see the Lord move. You want to see some cool stuff happen.
Yeah.
So we went through the whole service. Man, it was awesome. There's people at the altar. Everybody it was incredible. And it was one of those, I read your post about how you hear old hymns and you kind of break down, like, thinking about your dad. Well, for me, there's sometimes where I feel like almost it's the Holy Spirit moving so much that I can't sing. I love to sing in church. I love the songs, but there's sometimes, especially at events like that, where I can't. I feel like if I keep singing, I'm going to cry, so I just don't sing. Casey was like, well, it's all right. And I'm like, nah, I'm just going to stand there like a statue. I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to cry. I'm just going to stand there. I'm going to be a man. And but anyway, so we get through, and we get the kids in there. Hey, what did y'all do? Because I know it's at night, and they're probably just, kind of babysitting. And Cope was like, they made this craft, and it was Jesus and then John the Baptist, and it was like whenever John baptized him. Cope said, this is Jesus right here. I said, yeah. And he said, we said, what's that guy's name? I said, it's John. He goes, that's right. So Jonathan, he buried God under the water.
Hey.
As soon as I said, oh, that's John, he goes, that's right, Jonathan. And me and Casey just both started, we were like, I've never seen it in the Bible as Jonathan, but it might have been, it probably was. Yeah. He goes, that's Jonathan. Yeah, Jonathan buried God under the water. And I was like, no, he baptized him. He said, he what? I said, baptized. And he said, yeah, he baptized him. And I was like, oh, no. So it
Yeah.
was just so funny because he's like 2 really big stories in the Bible, and he was giving it all he had, and he felt really good about it. But he was just adding a 5-year-old spin on it was hilarious.
I'm ready for that. I'm ready because Arya is 4 and she goes to, it's not, it would be the equivalent of Sunday school, right? But I don't have a clue what
Yeah.
they do in there because I ain't never been. And when I think of Sunday school, I think of my Sunday school whenever I was
Yep.
raised.
Yep.
So I don't know what to expect or really, I don't know. I bet it's loud. I bet they jump around a lot and sing. I bet it's awesome to them, but I bet it's so wild. But this morning we went and whenever we went to get her after the service, the very first thing she said was, "Dad, I listened." And I'm like, I'm thinking that's good, but I'm like, I've never heard you say that sentence ever in the whole time I've known you, in our whole life together. You've never just come out and said, "I listened." So it makes me think she learned somebody said you might need to listen, or maybe she got in trouble. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she heard somebody tell another person they need to listen, but I don't know. It just kind of got me thinking. And then that kind of triggered my protective dad side. I'm thinking, okay, who was the teacher? You know, what they say exactly. I need you to tell me exactly what happened. And she's 4, so she's like, uh-huh. I'm like, okay, this isn't working. I need you to be older just for now, just for this conversation, and tell me exactly what happened. Did somebody be mean? Were they mean? Were they mean to you? What was their name?
Does Daddy need to go fight the Sunday school
Yeah.
teacher?
Do I need
Like,
to go back up there and teach somebody how to repent? Um,
you go back and they're like, yeah, no, we told her she was doing a good job listening.
yeah. Like, well, okay. Yeah. I don't know. I'm over here thinking all these scenarios of, did you overhear somebody that needed to listen and they told them to listen and now you're just repeating it? And she's like, uh-huh. Like, I don't think you understand the question.
Like, are you just saying uh huh right now, or do you
Yeah.
hear what
And I don't want to
Daddy's
say,
saying?
did you get in trouble? Because I don't want to, she's just going to say, uh-huh. You know, she don't understand the concept of me being that dad that's like, did you tell my daughter to listen? Did you have a good reason to tell him? Okay. Better get you.
Mr. Patterson, she was throwing a
Yeah.
bunch of blocks at another kid's head,
I don't really care.
and
Did you tell her to listen? Was that needed? Okay.
you feel like a big person now talking to a little
Yeah.
4-year-old like that. Like, you
Yeah.
feel good about yourself.
Mm-hmm. See
Sometimes
if
I
we
drop
come
the
back.
kids. Sometimes I drop. Yeah, we're switching churches. That's it's like.
Well,
So what brought y'all to visit our church today? Well, last church we were at told my daughter to listen. Well, they may have. We actually,
yeah.
they may have. We actually don't know what they said to her, but she said she listened, and we think somebody might have told her she wasn't listening.
Yeah. That's right.
So we're not happy about it.
Yeah.
But did you? I saw your post about the like going out in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you do that every year?
No.
Oh,
I I like to. I want to. I don't do the same thing every year, and I don't even remember really what I did last year. But this year, I don't know. 8 years. It's been 8 years since my dad died, and I think about him all the time, but I don't sit around and miss him all the time. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
and even the times that I get upset and emotional about it, I almost feel selfish about it because I'm thinking about what he's not here for me to see. Like he ain't here to see my kids, or maybe I'm having a hard time being a husband one day and I need some fatherly advice. Well, I can't call him, so I might feel sorry for myself and I might start crying, but I'm like, I miss my dad, but I don't know. This time I went to the woods and have you ever, do you ever recall just your mind just being blank? Like it was so peaceful. For me, that doesn't happen very often. I got something on my mind all the time.
And then you
And
almost feel guilty about being peaceful.
yeah, I was walking through the woods and I took my AirPods and I took my phone. I started reading. When I say I read, I mean I listen. I do the Audible app, and man, I can knock out some books, but whenever it didn't, that makes me feel awkward and be like, yeah, I just read this book that was 500 pages. And they're like, oh, really? I'm like, not really. I just listened to it. But is that
I
the
like
same?
it. I like it when I'm on a road trip, but I've tried to do it in the woods. One time I was in a skid steer, and you could hook your Bluetooth up to it. Well, I listened to an entire book, and I almost couldn't tell you anything I listened to because I mean I'm in there. Oh God! Oh shoot! Oh God! Here we go. Here, and then next thing I know,
Yeah.
I'm like, what's he talking about? So
Yeah.
it's hard for me. I can do it on a road trip because I'm focused on driving and I can hear it. But if I'm doing something else, I've got to have like I've got to be almost sitting there paying attention.
Yeah. You got to concentrate on listening to a book.
Yeah,
It sounds like. And
yeah.
then, I like to read, but anyways, my point is I had a book and I took my AirPods and I was thinking I was going to just put those AirPods in and walk. But I didn't do that. I played that book. The book is called 12 Ordinary Men, and it's about John MacArthur is the author, and he wrote a book about all the apostles and how common and how ordinary those dudes were. And it's really, man, it's really cool. I mean, so far I learned a lot. And I just let it play out loud as I'm walking with no AirPods. And the reason I say that is because it felt so good to just be out there and hearing leaves crunch, or you know, hear the birds chirping, or hear squirrels chattering, or just everything that you hear in the woods, and just the wind blow. I mean, it's crazy how much I uh, what's the word, take advantage of the noises of just the wind blowing, or don't notice it as much. I live in West Memphis. I live in a neighborhood. It's not so busy, but you can hear the interstate from my house. You can hear a train going down the railroad track. You can hear, the audible noises that are in a city, but I don't just take the time to listen to the real Mother Nature. The same exact noises that are going on in the woods are going on in my backyard. We got trees and birds and squirrels, but I don't hear them, and so that was cool. And I just enjoyed that time. I did listen to that book a little bit, but I didn't zone out and put my AirPods in and quiet, do the noise cancellation, because it was actually, and it was kind of peaceful hearing different noises, kind of reset my brain in a way. And I got to a point that I wasn't thinking about nothing. I was just walking, and that
Were you
hardly ever happens.
at your land, like family's land, or
Yeah,
were you into it?
yeah. We got some hunting. We got some land that is split. My mom, it's basically split three ways, and that's where I always go when I go hunting. It's not in Gillette, it's not in Titchener, it's not in DeWitt. It's just kind of on the outskirts of all three. And
Most people hearing this are not going to know where any of the three places that you
none
just
of
named
them
are.
probably. It's closer
They're
to
gonna be like,
Titchener than it is
is he
anything.
Gillette? Is that the
Yeah,
racer? Like, is that what he's talking about?
yeah, that's right. But it's a really good spot, and it isn't hunted really hard. It's got a lot of pressure around, but I think that's what pushes all the deer there. I was really hoping to find a bunch of sheds, and I did find a bunch.
You did. You
It's
found like two or three sets, huh?
Yeah, and they were all bigger than any shed that I've ever seen before. Most of the time I'll go out there and I find this like you can't even tell if it's a stick or a spike. I'm like, dadgummit, this
Yeah.
is not exciting.
You're like,
But
gosh, I hope that came off a bigger rack. Like, this is
yeah,
embarrassing.
and everywhere I looked, the only ones that I found were like would be like an 8 point or a 10 point, or which is really cool to find. But
Yeah.
it was cool. I found like 10 sides, so I guess I need to go back and find the other sides.
Did you? Oh, so you didn't find a pair?
Mm-mm.
Man, it sucks because if it didn't drop off, I've seen so many videos of when one side falls off, it scares them almost, and they
Yeah,
take off. And so if that other one didn't fall off,
yeah.
I mean, it could be
Yeah, it is.
hundreds of yards
And
away.
another interesting thing, while I was finding all of these, I walked over 10 miles
Well,
that
you
whole
could
time.
have. They could be pairs that I guess don't match up too.
It could be, but I didn't find any in the woods. I found them all in the open. Like they're all in a field, or they're all like in a open pathway or an open shooting lane, and which was interesting to me.
Yeah.
I walked so far, like just spiraling around the whole block of woods, and every one of them I found. There was one as soon as I parked my truck, it was right there. I mean, I ain't walked 10 feet. and it's right there. It was almost like, man, that's kind of a buzzkill. Like I came out here to search,
Yeah.
and as
You're
soon
like,
as I parked my truck, like it's
it's
cool.
like
At the
already I
same
found it.
time, that it's kind of like, man, that's not cool. But
Yeah.
whatever.
That's all. So
It was.
did you get together with your mom and sisters, hang out or do
I
anything, or
didn't.
just
I totally didn't. I knew that. I figured they would all be around each other. Of course, they all live there. So, and
right?
my oldest sister basically lives in my mom's backyard,
Gosh,
and
grow
Paige.
up, I mean,
Yeah.
jeez.
I mean,
Jeez.
wait, get out the
Grow
nest,
up,
that
Megan.
ain't out the
Dang, I know,
nest.
my
Come on.
gosh. And
Man,
she's
if
the
she
oldest.
sees
Like,
that,
you got everything you
yeah,
ever wanted. Get out. Like, let somebody else have
just,
something.
yeah, just
Jeez.
move over. She moved over just like backwards, just right in the
Yeah.
backyard.
She was like, all right, I'm not going to take the house, but I'm going to get close. Like, I want to be able to still be at the same land, like
Yeah.
the same.
And so
It,
whenever I
your
did tell
sister,
him,
Megan had both of her, or she had her kids before your dad passed, right?
yeah, all three. Megan's got 3 kids, and yeah, the youngest was, I don't remember how old he was. He was a baby. He wasn't talking. I don't even think he may have been walking. I don't know. I just remember him like babbling on videos as she would send it. We started this group chat called Team Dad, and so I remember she would send videos of her son like babbling, and he could say "Papa," and so that was always cute to watch on those videos to him.
Yeah.
But he knew he knew who Papa was. He knew who my dad was, but not like Megan's older kids.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's
Paige,
the one thing that's what was hard for me is because it was like Casey was pregnant with Cope, and so which a lot of people don't know. So we were pregnant. Casey was pregnant. Um, I think it was November before he passed in July of the following year, and she had a miscarriage, and
hmm,
that child would have been born like beginning of July. He passed away at the end of July.
hmm,
And so there were so many times that I was like super bitter about it because I thought, man, that was his opportunity. He could have at least held a grandchild. Like that would have been awesome. But then I
yeah,
also think how big of a blessing it was because like I can't imagine being a dad for the first time and then 20 days later losing my dad and trying to deal with that because being an only child, I mean, just trying to be there for mom, but then also be there for Casey and having a child.
hmm,
And like it would have just been, you know,
yeah, that's a
I was
lot.
really mad at God for a while about that. But then
That's
it was
good.
like,
I mean,
well, it may have honestly been a blessing because it would have been a lot. So she ended up getting pregnant. I guess that would have been in February. And then Cope was born in November. So lost dad the end of July, August, September, October, then had Cope.
what day of July was it?
27th.
It's close. My dad died the last day of January, the
Yep. So
31st.
we do a Bago tournament every year in his honor,
Mm,
and it was kind of one of those that we did here in the backyard. Had 5, maybe 10, 15 teams, just family, friends. I mean, it was just a kind of an event. But then the last 2 years, we've actually done it. So I'm on the board at Hope Cancer Resources here in Springdale, and they put it on. And so I think this last year we had 30 teams,
dang.
raised almost 19,000.
Wow.
So for to go to them, so it's gaining some traction. It's awesome. It's in Dad's honor. We have the shirts, and I was able to win it the second year we did it. And so, like on the trophy basically, if you and your partner win it, you get your name on the plaque, like on the trophy. But then you bring it back the next year.
Mm,
And so,
that's cool.
like my name's on it. Me and Colt actually won it, so that was
That dude's
nice.
clutch. That's a good. That's
Yeah,
a good partner, man. I don't.
yeah,
I hate giving him credit like that, but he don't miss very often.
yeah. Well, this last year he did. But well, we're gonna have to end up having some new. We're gonna have to kind of do some things too because we got some people who sign up for it that play a lot. Like
Yeah.
they're real good, and so I'm like, come, it's a charity
He,
thing, man. Don't if you come in and beat everybody, it's really is it that cool? Me and
I
him
mean, it's
played in a
cool if you
tournament one
win.
time. Well, me and him played in one time. It was a charity event. Me and Colt did, and we played against national champions twice.
Dang.
And me and him started that tournament, and I bet we were eliminated within 8 minutes. Like, we
I don't know
lost
why,
two
but I
games within 8 minutes.
really want to laugh hard. I mean, I'm containing it, but my body's shaking
Oh,
hearing that.
it was like
Oh, that's
three
hilarious.
in the hole, 4 in the hole, 2 in the hole, ball game. 3 in the hole, 3 in the hole, 2 in the hole, ball game. Like, it was.
That's
I mean,
stupid.
it
What
was
do they
just,
do with
and
their
it
life?
was. Yeah, it's like your national champions. Like, maybe have a separate bracket for all of them. You know, and you know what? To make a stand, we've never played in that tournament again.
Well, it's not even fun, man. But it is fun to hear, you know?
Yeah, no, it was definitely fun to be a part of it. It was so fast, we didn't even get to take part. We could have, but it was like, well, we're just gonna hang out. We didn't even get to take part in the drinks or the food or,
Oh, God.
I mean,
I just
anything.
wish, man, I'm not laughing at y'all's losses. I kind of am. But Colt hates losing. And you're pretty competitive yourself. It just kind of,
It was
I kind of
quiet.
wish I was there.
I don't know if we said anything to each other. I think that we looked at each other, and at that point, it was almost like, well, I mean, let's be disrespectful to them
Of
because
course.
they did this to us,
Yeah.
you know. And
Oh, boy.
but yeah, it was. I'm not. I mean, I want to say the two games. It was 21-2, 21-3. I think were the two scores.
That's,
And I'll be honest, the fact that we got 5 points is spectacular.
yeah, I mean, that's impressive sounding. Wow.
Spectacular. So,
I don't want
yeah,
to
it was
play those
fun.
people.
Well, like it started at 3, and I think I was getting back in my truck 3:15, something like that. Like it was, yeah. No, it was a lot of fun though.
Mm,
Had a good time. Glad it was for a good. It was for a good cause.
yeah.
Um,
Wow. Those
but
people, they're just going around sandbagging tournaments, man.
yeah, good
Just,
life.
you know what? I'm going to get into this. Oh my gosh, I can't talk about it. That's really funny. Oh
Yeah,
man,
man,
it
it was
sounds
stupid,
so
but
fun.
yeah, I was so mad about it. Even thinking about it now, I'm getting hot. Like I'm kind of just because it would be. It's like having somebody who's really like the guys that are playing at the U of A right now, playing in a pickup tournament
Yeah,
against a
yeah,
bunch of 40-year old guys, and then be like,
yeah.
yeah, we beat y'all 11-0, and like, well, yeah, y'all were running full court, and we never passed half court. Like we never even.
You're supposed to
So
win. Yeah.
me and somebody's. This was I think I've told this before. Me and a couple. There was probably I think 8 of us, maybe 10, signed up for a league 2 years ago, and we were like, oh, it's at the rec center. Like, yeah, this will be fun. Or it's at the gym. They had like a rec league. And we're like, oh, this will be cool. There's gonna be some younger teams, but surely there's gonna be some other 30, 40-year-olds. There wasn't. And so the first game we played, there was a team like they had jerseys. I
Mm,
ended up buying us jerseys because I was like, well, we're gonna at least look good if we're gonna get beat like this.
yeah.
I think they dunked 15 to 20 times in that game.
Mm, that's
Like
disrespectful
and
there.
we had a hard time filling a roster.
Mm,
Like we had a hard time like well, I can't, I got the kids tonight.
yeah.
Or, it was like bit grown up stuff like, well, I can't because I gotta pay the water bill or stuff. And I don't know, but it was just there would be 5 of us, so we could keep it competitive for like 3 minutes,
Yeah.
and then we were looking over this, and they're like running 5 in and 5 out.
Y'all just
So
like go, you know.
yeah, I hope they get tired or sick or something.
Mm,
But
you got some
so
funny memories, man. You've made some good choices in your
well, that wasn't
competitive
one of them. That wasn't one of
competitive
them
stuff.
because here's what's about. This shows you what our team was like. So first game, one guy rolls his ankle. The youngest one on our team. He's young, like low 20s, right?
Mm.
Rolls his ankle. I mean, he's our fast one. So if he can't run, like we can't run as a
Yeah.
team.
Yeah, man.
And then same game, dude, one of our guys is backpedaling, steps on one of their big guy's foot, rolls his ankle so bad that he was on crutches and in like a blow up cast for like 3 to 4 weeks, like almost.
Sucky.
And so he was done after
Yeah,
that. So it was like, man, after our first game, we have only 10 guys. There was like I think 8. No, we ended up having to finish the game with 4 people.
mm,
You know how outmatched you are. So I come down the court one time and I was wide open, and there was one guy on their team. He was like backpedaling, and in my mind, I'm thinking he's gonna try to block me, and he's more athletic, and he's like 6'6". So there's a 100% chance he's gonna block me, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be one of those LeBron, like he's gonna throw it off the backboard. So
Hmm.
I lobbed it off the glass, and he stopped because he thought I can't let him dunk on me, right?
He thought
But I
you
can't.
thought he thought
Oh
you were
yeah,
throwing an alley oop to yourself.
I was.
Oh,
But not to dunk it,
oh,
just because I was like, well, if he thinks I'm
trickster.
gonna do it, he'll back off. He did, but I was so laughing in my head that he thought I was gonna dunk it that I caught the ball under the rim and
That's
just had to. I missed the shot. That's what
three
I say all that to say. I missed a shot, but it was funny because everybody in that gym that was watching for like one and a
six
half to two
seconds.
seconds thought,
This is about to
"Oh, he's
go
about to
down,
do it." But then
and
when
then
they
he
saw
got
me
the
jump, they
rebound.
went,
Yeah.
yeah. But then when they saw me jump, they were like, no,
Nah,
he's
he ain't
not.
doing it. He ain't doing it.
Mm-mm.
Man, I think
So
I would just like opt out for maybe try like a ping pong league, or I don't know, like laundry league. Could they make
those
that?
that those that can't do, coach. So
I mean, I ain't in no
so
league, so, but I ain't got no stories like I don't lose a lot of competitive games because I don't play any games,
yeah,
so
buddy, you can't lose. You'll definitely not lose 100% of the games you don't play.
that's a fact. That should be a bumper sticker.
Back on your daddy real quick.
Mm.
So you were saying I saw your post about the curls today too.
Yeah,
So you are his son, not the
I am.
milkman's.
Dude, I didn't know
Um,
about that picture. I did not know I looked like him until like that picture was literally 8 years ago. February 2nd was the first time I ever saw that picture. I didn't know that I looked like my dad until that picture. That's wild to me.
that's crazy. So was the 8 year today or was it yesterday?
It was the 31st, so 2 days ago.
Friday. Or
Yeah,
sorry, yeah, Friday.
yeah.
That's crazy, man. What's the one thing if you had to pick? I mean, there's a lot of things, but what's the one thing that you're like? Let me think. How to ask this. What's the one thing you miss getting to do with him? Let's start with that.
Man, I miss his hugs, man. That I miss I miss his hugs because you take away my dad, then you take away a man giving another man a hug, and it's okay. You know, for me, I don't like my father-in-law came over. I cooked steaks tonight, and whenever they left, he gave me a hug, but it was like a side hug. My dad, he give you a full like hug, dude, and and it was never weird ever. My family are huggers, and that's just what we do. But getting a big bear hug from your dad, it people say it hits different, and it just does. It
Yeah,
I miss that the most. If I could get anything back, I would I would get the hugs. Because sometimes I don't need a lot of words. I don't need nobody to listen to me. I need a man to hug me because that's what I need. Another man to hug me, period. And I need my dad to
yeah,
hug me. And can't nobody make me feel seen, heard, cared for, loved like my dad just by him hugging me, period. You know,
yeah.
sometimes I don't need nobody to talk to. I just need somebody to love me and give me a hug, man. That hug says a lot more than words sometimes.
Yeah, there's a couple times on the podcast we've asked if you got 100 men sitting in a room and they're about to become dads or they're about to become husbands, and you've got the microphone and you've got 1 minute to kind of say something that's going to leave a lasting impression. I want to get your take on that in a little bit, but what I want to switch it up a little bit for this, this conversation is if you got 5 minutes with your dad, God said, "Hey, you got 5 more minutes." What would you say, or what would you want to do?
I would ask him questions. I would ask him, uh, whenever you and mom disagreed, and whenever you thought she was disrespecting you, or whatever it was that made you angry towards her, What you do? How'd you handle that? Because I'm having a hard time with that. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't. I have. I'm tired of trial and error. I'm tired of learning by messing up. Because it's my wife. I ain't trying to hurt her feelings. I don't want to. I don't ever want to put distance between me and her because of my feelings. But so in that moment, I'd ask him like, in those moments, Dad, what did you do? Did you apologize? Did you tell her how you feel? Did you not tell her how you feel and you just walk outside, or you go for a ride? What'd you do? Because I need to know that, because I'm just like you. I don't know what to do with myself whenever I get angry, and talking about it right now ain't working.
Yeah. And I think sometimes I think the same things, but sometimes then you got to remember Casey's different from your mom.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like there's things that uh there's advice I want to ask, but there's so many things that as I get older, I'm like, well, if I depending on the situation, whatever I ask him, that's what worked for him.
yeah.
Like it's good knowledge to have, but it's like, you know, well, if somebody does this, you pop them in the mouth. Well, yeah, and that'll work.
Hmm.
But now it's just a lot more comes. It's just
Yeah.
it's a different time. But dude, I've caught myself. There's been a few, and it happened today, which is why I'm thinking about it. So this guy at church, Casey, we'll kind of see people that look like dad, and I mean it's not dad, obviously, and I'm never lost where I saw, it's nothing like
Hmm.
that. I don't believe that you get that opportunity. I think you get the feeling of like maybe he's watching or that he can see things, but not. Oh, I think I saw him today.
Yeah.
But there's this guy in church, and it was like Casey said, "Man, he kind of looks like a younger your dad." And I looked over and I was, "Man, no, he doesn't. This guy's got a gray goatee and but if I caught him at this perfect angle when I looked over, it looked just like him.
Hmm.
I can't explain it. It wasn't like it was his whole face. It
Hmm.
wasn't even like a profile. It was right here, but it was almost. I caught myself staring at this man during
Yeah.
church,
Yeah.
just being, and he was 3 or 4 rows over. I mean, he was way over there. So it was anybody behind me. I mean, I was like churches up here or the
Yeah.
pastors up here, and I'm like this.
Right.
So it's clear that I'm not looking like in. So I'm sure it looked weird, but I catch myself like just soaking it up.
Hmm.
Like I don't
Yeah.
know.
Man, I had that
It's
same type of
crazy.
experience. Um, it was literally, Dad died in Little Rock in the hospital. We come home the next, I guess it was the same night. I don't remember what we did the day that he died. I don't remember if we all stayed in Little Rock. He was sick for so long that we got an apartment in Little Rock, and that's where we stayed most of the time. And I visited him every weekend. My mom was there every day, just about. My sisters came up on the weekends or however often they could. But I remember going home, and when anybody, most people, I don't know how everybody else does it, but in the South, I know in DeWitt, whenever somebody passes away, everybody shows up at your house, and bringing food and just being there for you. And a lot of times, there's a lot of people and a lot of food. And man, I knew, I knew he had passed. I knew he was gone. I knew all of that. But there was a moment, some dude walked through my mom's. We call it the den, the living room. Somebody walked through the den, and he had a black jacket on, and he carried himself just like my dad. And for less than a second, I thought, for a split second, less than a split second, I don't know, it was the smallest amount of time for so many thoughts to race through my mind. But for that fraction of a second, I thought, there's my dad. All of this didn't happen. I mean, as soon as the
Yeah.
thought went through my mind, I realized that's somebody else. I don't know who it is, but that's not him. And I didn't get choked up about that, but it was so weird, because I was convinced. For I just wish I could know how long that thought. lasted, because it's happened so quickly. I saw him. I thought, oh my gosh, there's Dad. This is all. This. Oh, that's not Dad. Like it
Yeah.
was 8 years, or not 8 years, 8 months. He was in the hospital with cancer, and then for maybe a month and a half, he was at home. And he was back and forth, having to go back and visit, and get things checked. But for that split second, the very next day after he had passed away, I saw that dude, and I was like, man, there's Dad. This is all. This None of this happened, and then it's like it
Yeah.
just clicked again, back to reality.
Well, me and Mom had that same thing. So this had to have been a couple years after he passed. We are heading over to like where the kids go to school, and there's these sets of duplexes, and there was a guy, and he was pulling his trash can out, and he's facing away from us. We can see the back of his head. His head's bald, so when Dad, like towards the end, he lost all of his hair, and so Mom was riding in the passenger seat, and Casey was in the back seat. I don't even know if we had Cope with us, but I don't think we even had Colin yet. And I noticed it, but I also didn't want to bring it up how much he looked like Dad. Almost so much so that I wanted to ask him to stand right there, let me loop back around, let me drive by one more time.
Hmm.
But I didn't want to say, hey, Mom, did you think about that? But I could
Yeah.
feel like I wanted to say it, and I looked over, and she said, man, that guy looked just like your dad. And it was like I don't know, it was, and I was almost thankful for it. He kind of was just made that 5 seconds there be like, man, I know it's not him. Just like today at church, and when we went back tonight, and it's all three campuses coming together, so the chances of me seeing somebody again is very rare. But to see the same guy, we were sitting up in the balcony and looked down, and the same guy was sitting down there again. At a whole different church,
Wow.
different campus, different service, and again, I was almost just, man, thanks for 10 more seconds of just being like, man, it ain't him. But if I can catch that front right top profile, I get to
Yeah.
see Dad real quick. Because that's, for me, what sucks about it is he never got to meet either grandchild. He never, and I think what sucks about it the most is he would have been awesome.
Oh.
He would have been, and I was an only child, so it was like, it was me, and I wrestled with a lot of, should we have had kids sooner? Because Casey and I were married 6 years before we had Cope. And so I'm like, should we? We had 6 years, but we weren't ready.
Yeah.
Especially in the beginning, we definitely weren't financially ready. Which I don't know if you're ever financially ready for kids, but there's times where I wish we would have. I wish we'd have just done it. I wish we'd have just, tried to have a kid, and so he could have at least been a part of it. Because I think towards the end, he told the doctor one time, and it crushed me. He was like, "Man, I gotta make it. I got a grandbaby coming in November. I gotta at least make it till then." And then to know kind of towards the end, like he's not gonna make it, and then going, man, that sucks.
Yeah.
And knowing, well, it's day to day, but he's definitely not making it 3 months.
Yeah.
And so he was like laying there towards the end. He was in the hospital. He's in ICU, and they came and got me and Mom, and they were like, "Hey, Greg's in there. He's kind of upset. He was talking to his brothers, and I forget who else was in the room." And we went in there, and he was like, "I'm not going to get to meet." He's like, "I'm not going to get to meet my grandson," and he was super upset about it. And This was 100% God, but I was like, "Well, Dad, you didn't." We told them about it later on, but we have a child in heaven. Like we lost one, so maybe God's sending you there to take care of that one. We don't know. We don't know if it was a boy or a girl, but they're up there by themselves right now. So you got to go up there. And it was crazy because he was on so many medicines and all that, but it was like that one sentence. He was okay.
Yeah.
That's what he needed. And I was so thankful for that, because I was sitting there thinking, man, this sucks. You're not going to get to see him. And I know you're not. And it wasn't even 24 hours later when he passed, but I was like, man, you're not going to get to see him. And it was, everything was fine when he was kind of loopy and didn't really know what was going on. But then in that split second when it dawned on him they wouldn't get to see his grandkids, that crushed us, because he was in reality at that moment, and that was tough.
Man, I haven't I haven't told many people this, it's not a secret. It's one of those things that don't come up. When you experience something like this, it almost has to come up in a common conversation naturally to talk about. But the day that my dad died, a couple hours before that, we didn't know, or I didn't know, the shape that he was in. I knew the doctors had said, called in the family. So at that point that the direction that it's going, but you just don't give up hope. And so you don't know what time of day it's going to happen. You may think it was going to happen, but we weren't waiting at that point for it to happen. And, or I wasn't. And then the doctor, uh, the doctor came in and said, I need one of y'all or two of y'all to go downstairs with him as he gets some test run. So I went with him. My aunt went with me. And I don't know why it was just a thing from God. I look back now because to me it was so odd that I went and my sisters didn't go with me. It was just, why me? But I went down there with him, and we didn't even get to the room. Like, I guess he was at that point. I guess the doctors realized that he was going down quickly. Maybe I don't know the right way to say it, but they never even we never even had the test. Me and my aunt were waiting in the waiting room downstairs as they were trying to perform the test, and then I remember a nurse coming in and saying, "Hey, both of y'all come in, like to help him calm down." And that was very out of character for my dad to need anybody to help him calm down. He at that point I realized he's either on a lot of medicine right now that's making him think something else is happening or something ain't right. Because my dad, he wouldn't he wouldn't he wouldn't put anybody in a spot to make them have to calm him down. It was just not the way he operated. But we went, and imagine imagine my dad is right here in front of me, and this wall is the direction he's looking. He was in his hospital bed, and he's looking at right here, and I'm standing right beside his bed. He's looking at a wall. There's not a door, there's not a hall, there's not a window. It's a blank wall. And he was trying to get out of his bed to walk that way, and there was nothing there. Like, I'm standing in between the hospital bed and the wall, and I mean, we're talking like maybe this much room behind me, and but he is dead set. He's like he was grabbing my arm, taking it off the bed, which he wouldn't never do that. And he's looking straight through me. And he's like, I just, he never finished that sentence. He just kept saying, I just, and he was pointing like that way. I just need to go that way. And I was like, Dad, you got to stay in this, you got to stay here. You can't. And my dad, even in his, even on his last day, he was stout as an ox. Like, he's just a strong man. So I'm thinking, I can't handle him. Like, if he wants to get out, he's gonna get out. And but I was like, Dad, I put my hand on his arm, his forearm, and he was like coming over the bed, like he was about to swing his leg over and start walking. But the one he was gonna run into a wall. But I also knew I can't let this man get out this bed. He's dying. He's got leukemia. He can't get out this bed. Um, so I just kept on saying, Dad, you got to stay in this bed. You got to stay in this bed. And I just kept on like gently like pushing him back. And he just kept on saying, I just. And he didn't have tears in his eyes, but they were like glazed over. Like, it looked like he was on the brink of crying, but he wasn't. No tears dropped. And I was emotional. I was shook up because I that's the first time I'd ever experienced my dad behaving that way. And
Yeah.
and I didn't really know. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know if he was dying and he was seeing Jesus. Like, that's what my heart says now. Like, because it was not very long after that he died. And I watched my dad die. Like, have you ever watched somebody die? Because I watched him have a heart attack, and I watched him take his last breath, and I watched him never breathe again. And and that was not long after what had just happened. So I was thinking, like, did I just see my dad see heaven? And because he's looking right through me, he would never, ever look at me and make me feel or think that he was responsible for making me emotional or anything like that. And he saw something so beautiful and so amazing. And he was pointing straight at a wall. And it was almost like he was trying to say, I just need to get there. I just need to go that way. He was trying to get out of his bed and go. And eventually he calmed down, or not. He let me push him back in that bed. I went back up with him, and in like a couple hours he died. But that that was wild to me. Like, I think about that so many times a day. Even I didn't see anything. I didn't hear nothing, but my dad did. And I'm I don't want to think that it was because of the medicine. I want to think
Yeah.
that he saw the pearly gates, or he saw whatever you see before you enter paradise, or before you go to heaven and you meet Jesus, or wherever you go. I don't know if it's heaven or paradise. I don't know the rules, but he saw something that he wanted to get to, and I couldn't see it. It was just a wall right behind me.
Yeah.
That was the most unique thing that I experienced whenever he was on his way
Yeah.
out.
I had the same, man, the exact same thing. So dad was in ICU, and I was like you. I didn't realize how sick he was. I also thought, man, my dad's Superman. Like,
Mm-hmm.
eventually he'll go into remission, or I don't know. Like, it never even crossed my mind. From the day he got diagnosed, it never crossed my mind, like, that this may kill him, could kill him.
Right.
Never thought anything about it. And so the last few days he's in ICU, and they're, running all these tests. And I mean, he's in pain. They got him on morphine because, I mean, it's, it's in his bones, it's everywhere. And so,
Mm-hmm.
um, I stayed when he first went to ICU. I stayed the night with him. We watched a Cubs Cardinals game. First time in my entire life, me and him had watched a baseball game together. We both liked baseball, both hated watching because the games were so long. But it was just, that was the season. It was a Cubs Cardinals game, and I remember us sitting there watching it, and I'd look over and he'd be dozing in and out. Mom went home. She got some rest. She came back first thing in the morning, and I think it was the next day or the next night. Those days it's kind of hazy, fuzzy. I don't remember a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it was all of us. So we got moved from the ICU to another room, and it was peaceful on this floor. Like, it was an eerie calm. I felt like we were the only people on the entire floor.
Wow.
And dad was in there. They had him on oxygen. Because he had been doing like a trial. I say trial. I don't know the exact terminology for it, but it was one of those. This is the best thing we got to try for your cancer. Let's try it. So they tried it, but one of the defects of it was it basically did to your lungs what COVID can do,
Mm-hmm.
and so it like basically, like shatter. It gives your lungs like a shattered glass look if you look at it. So they just don't work. And
Yeah.
so he was on full oxygen. And we're sitting there for a while and we're talking, and this one nurse comes in, and me and mom are basically to a point where we're like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, are we here, or can he go home and just be on this oxygen? And if he passes away, he's at least at home. And the nurse was so sweet, and I couldn't pick her out of a crowd of two right now. But she looked at mom and she was like, I'll be honest with you. Normally when people come to this floor, they're already unconscious, and
Mm-hmm.
for lack of better words, we just unplug everything and they go.
Yeah.
And so we talked to a doctor, and it was me and my mom and one of his brothers, and the doctor was like, there's no recovering. There's no coming back. This is it. And we go back in there, and mom looks at dad and she's like, honey, I told you and I've talked numerous times, we don't want to be kept alive by machines. We don't want to do that. And so,
Christ.
but yeah, so doctor was, there's not coming back from this. It's not like he's going to make a recovery. You're where you are because this is kind of the end. And so we go in there, and Mom's, Greg, we talked. And keep in mind, the one thing I hated about it at the end, and I've told Casey I don't want it like this, is in that room was me, Mom, Dad, Casey, Dad's parents, his brothers, and their wives. So it's just I don't know. I feel like Dad would have wanted them all in there, where the Kreisells are a really close-knit bunch. But for me, it was just, I don't know. But she's talking to him, and he's like, you're right, but he's not. I mean, they gave him enough morphine to kill an elephant. The fact that he was even able to respond to her, but when they took him off of everything, it was kind of one of those where a vet described it the best to me. When I had a goat one time put down, I'm not comparing the two, but it helped me kind of grasp everything. She was like, I said, man, it's still moving and it's still kind of kicking. It's just such a violent thing. And she said, well, you got to think there's energy in your body. Even if your mind's gone, even if you're dying, even if you're dead, there's still energy in your body that has to get out. Well, the only way your body knows how to get rid of it is to move and expand the energy. And so, like, when they unhooked him from everything, I literally watched every single last breath that he took. And I have played that 3 minutes a million times in my head, just seeing it. And so everybody's crying, and I'm not the most emotional guy. And so I'm sitting there, and it was there was two things crazy that happened. So I look up at Mom, because I mean, she had hugged him and kissed him, but then she wanted to kind of respectfully give brothers and his parents, my grandparents, time right there at the very end. Well, my grandparents were sitting over here, and I looked, and Mom's standing at the end of the bed, and she's watching it, like everything, and she's stone cold. And I thought about it, she had been that way from day one. Like, she would break down with me, but if she was around him, no crying. It was straight. It was just like Wonder Woman. And so he ends up passing. Well, I wasn't looking up. I was like looking down at him. I don't even know. I kind of blacked out. But all of a sudden, everybody gasped and almost joyous. And they said that he raised his head up, like everybody's right. He's laying down. Everybody's by his head. Nobody's like standing over him. Everybody's like crouched down. And he looks up. He looks past everybody. He looks to the sky, and he smiles. And then he passed.
Wow.
And that's cool.
It is cool. I have replayed mine. I just told Casey the story yesterday. It's not something that comes up so often that you replay that memory naturally, like kind of. But whenever you finally get to hear yourself, for me, it's almost therapeutic. Like, dang, I got to witness something that I've never heard people say. I've heard it. Like, I've watched Netflix documentaries about, like near-death experiences, or people that have even been pronounced dead, and then they come back, and then they have some experience like they saw. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of things that happen so often to so many people that they can pretty much say, this is what you experience, or a lot of people have experienced this, and they have a majority. It's almost like an average response. But I've never met anybody that's been able to tell that story face to face, and I got to experience something. I got to watch my dad see heaven. That's the only way I know how to describe it.
Well, and that's what we talked about. Is it's so nice just to at least, especially because we're so big in our faith. It kind of, we all knew where Dad was going. It didn't make it easier. It should have made it easier, but it didn't. But it was like seeing it, and I didn't see it physically. I watched him take his last breath, but like everybody, it wasn't one person saw it and everybody was like, well, yeah. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Or it wasn't like, did y'all, I think you might have. It was like everybody saw it and he just smiled. And it was like in that last moment, it was almost one of those where he was gone, but it was just like his body finishing up. And so like when he smiled, it almost just gave everybody like some closure on it.
Yeah.
Because death, especially like how you and I believe, death's not closure.
Right.
You know, the resurrection and all of that is like the closure we have.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all had such good feelings about it, but it was when he smiled, it was almost somebody was welcoming.
Yeah.
Like he looked up, he smiled, and whether it was family, whether it was Jesus, whether it was an angel, he was happy to see
Mm-hmm.
where he was going. And
Man,
so that's awesome.
one of the things that, and if you read my post today, uh, I, I really can't listen to old church hymns. Like you'd have to pretty much catch me in a mindset that I'm not thinking about that or loss or nothing like that. And that's hard because every time I hear a church hymn, my mind, it's just automatic reaction. I go straight to my dad. And it breaks me down every single time where I got to change the station. It's not denial. It's just something that, well, maybe it is denial. Shoot, I don't know. I don't know. I'll ask my therapist. I go to one of those now. But
That's awesome.
but
I'm married to a counselor, so
that's awesome too. But my dad, he liked Alan Jackson. He had a CD album. It was a two-part CD, and he never made it to the age that he'd listen to iPods. You know, it just never happened. But he had this album called Precious Memories, maybe, or Precious Moments, or something like that. And it's Alan Jackson singing all these old church hymns. And every time I hear every one of these hymns, which are every single popular church hymn that you can imagine, all of them, you know,
yeah.
if I hear those hymns, I hear my dad singing, which is, some might say, oh, that's really nice. And maybe it is. It probably is. It is. But I'm, I can't. I can't. I don't, I don't know why I can't, but I just can't. I can't. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe somebody can diagnose me and figure out why I have such a hard time hearing the memory of my dad singing. But, um, but that's where I'm at. And once we realized, and once the doctor said the cancer took over, there's, we had to make the decision. That was a hard thing that I think I've only told Casey maybe, but my mom, my sisters, we met in the hall. We had to make that decision. Like he can stay and he's going to be unresponsive, hooked up to that machine. You know, or we can let him go. And we didn't make the decision for him to die. But there's just that moment that the call had to be
Well,
made.
you owe it to them. You owe it to
Yeah,
them to not let them just
yeah.
sit there
So
and suffer.
so we made that decision, and then the nurses, they came in, they unhooked him from everything, and he was just laying there, and he wasn't talking. Obviously, he was gone. But he was still there, and he was still breathing, but his eyes were closed, and we turned on that disc, um, Alan Jackson, and whenever he died, like once once it kind of registered that he's gone, like my mom, my sisters, my brother-in-laws, my closest family, my um, aunt and uncles were in there, and is at that point we were actually waiting, just watching him take his last breath, and it's just a scene I'll never forget, but he did take his last breath, and once we realized, it's almost like once the dust settled, it was probably only a couple minutes that he's gone. He's not breathing. And everybody, it was like wails of crying, like not like
Right,
full
right.
blown weeping. And but once that kind of hit like I don't know. Once it kind of calmed down and we registered what song was playing, it was Alan Jackson singing "Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus." And dude, I mean, for one, that's an amazing thing. But two, I would never be able to hear that song for the rest of my life
Right.
with dry eyes. But that was another cool thing that happened, and I just remember my mom saying he sees Jesus. You know, his eyes are on Jesus, and that hearing my mom say that, as
Yeah.
you know, but that was another cool part of that experience. All of it was so hard, and it still, I think it will always and forever be hard. But I got those moments that other people may or may not have. I got, you know,
Yeah.
and that,
Well, that's what I tell mom. Me and her talk about it a lot. It's tough whenever you go through, you know, being upset and angered that he's taken away. But then I think, man, he got diagnosed, and we had, you know, two years, 2.5 years, something like that. And so it's like, what about the people who lose somebody in a car wreck?
yeah,
And it's like they didn't say goodbye. They didn't even know what was happening. So, not that there's an easy way and a hard way or anything like that, but you just take the situation that you're given and say, God wanted it to go this way, wanted you to be able to, you can handle it.
hmm,
And when you can't handle it, you got to lean on him. And so, um, I had a lot of bitter feelings, I guess, about it, especially becoming a father and there being so many things right off the bat that I was like, am I doing it right? Am I thinking about this right? Am I, you know, just anything? There
yeah,
was just none of that. Hey, did I, how did you handle this? Or what did you do? Or at what age should I tell Cope to hit the kid back?
yeah,
Or should I not? Do you have a funny story about you telling me to do that and then being like, oh yeah, you can't do that? I don't know. There were so many things where I'm like, man, it would have been nice to just have. Um, we went duck hunting like almost a month ago now, I think, and it was like a 4-day trip. It was when it snowed, so
hmm,
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it snowed all Thursday night. We're camping. We're in a camper. We got fire tent. It's crazy. Well, we hunt Thursday, Friday, and one of the guys on Saturday says, "Hey, Saturday afternoon, I'm going to go with my dad." And so he leaves and he comes back and he's like, "Man, sorry guys, I just, Dad wanted to go. I felt like I needed to go with him." And me and another guy almost simultaneously were like, "Dude, I would drop kick every one of you in the nuts if I could go hang out with my dad right now."
yeah.
Like, I would literally, I would push you down and wreck total all y'all's vehicles trying to get my
Oh yeah,
truck out of here if I could go spend 5 minutes with him.
oh yeah.
Like,
Especially on a hunt,
so,
man. That's a hunt is
well,
just
that's why,
different.
dude, I couldn't fish. You talk about like the music, dude. It took a while after Dad passed for me to be able to go fishing, just because he never was a hunter, but
Hmm,
he fished. Like, he fished tournaments. Like, that was his thing. And so for me, it was being out there. I almost felt it's just not the same. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, just really didn't enjoy it. And so I really dove into hunting. Um, but Cope's been asking, and so I'm gonna start taking him, and it'll be fun to start some new memories.
yeah. Even my dad. This is a select amount of people will say, "Boy, you're crazy. You need to get over this," and I'll be judged for it. I know it'll happen. I just may not hear about it, but um, Dad had a deer camp, and people from Arkansas that hear this, everybody knows where Hot Springs, Arkansas is. Well, the deer camp is called Cold Springs, and and it was a deer camp that um, you had to either be voted in to the deer camp, and it had to be, you know, you had to be approved by the members that was in it, or if you had a son, your firstborn son is just basically grandfathered in. my dad
That's
was
tight.
my dad was the second son, so he had an older brother, and Uncle Jimmy got the camp whenever Papa died, and Dad and another one of Dad's buddies, they went in and they floated a camp in. It was basically a single wide or maybe double wide trailer, but they had to buy in or get their voted in or whatever. Anyways, long story short, Dad finally had a membership. I'm his firstborn son. I'm his only son. So whenever Dad died, I inherited the camp. Except I can't go to camp. Like I cannot. It's like the music thing. Like the only stand you get, every hunter has two stands, and they're both my dad's stands, and they're stationary. They don't move. They don't. I don't know if they move. I don't know if that's an option, but these two stands have been in the same place all of my life since I was a kid, man. And so anytime I went to camp, and hunting with my dad, that's where we were, on these stands, in these spots, and in that cabin, and everything looks the same. You don't remodel cabins half the time. It's
Right.
you get what you get, and that stays there forever. I can't go. I bet I've been. I mean, he died 8 years ago. I bet I've been in there twice, maybe. Just can't do it. And so I got these old timers now. If y'all see this, no offense, y'all are older than me, but these members that grew up with my dad and were in this camp with my dad and still living and still active in this camp, and it has kind of been a burden on me, because I'm over here thinking, man, I inherited this camp that my dad worked so hard to get into and and, and keep up, and it's a guaranteed place that I can go deer hunting that I didn't work for. I just inherited, and and I'm not taking advantage of it. I'm not going at all, and I have I I have hard feelings about it, just because I'm thinking that they're thinking this unappreciated son, or like, how dare you not keep up meat. My dad's nickname was Meathead, and everybody knew him as Meathead. So how dare you not keep up Meathead's camp, or cabin. I don't think they really think it, but that's the devil messing with my head, like,
Yeah.
you ain't
I don't
going
think
down
they
there.
think it. I think it would be cool though if you could find a way to just maybe in the non-deer season, like just in the off season, to from now till August. I would pick earlier because it gets hot in June, July, August.
Yeah,
But just take
mosquitoes
your
and snakes
Bible,
and all the things.
knowing that you're not going to be hunting. Just take your Bible and
Yeah,
go sit in the stand,
yeah,
and just or listen to a book like you were talking about, and just sit out there in the quiet
yeah.
and just see kind of
What
what
happens?
transpires.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of things that I don't know about grief, the grieving process. And my mom, she went to I guess, a class or a community or something called Grief Share. I don't know much about it, but I know they are most places across the state, maybe a nationwide thing. I don't know, but there's one locally around here. I just never went to it. And my mom keeps on saying, you need to go to Grief Share, even this year, 8 years later. And she's like, because I don't know if I grieved. I mean, I was sad, but I don't know the difference in being sad and grieving. And I've read a couple books since then about different things like infertility, and I lost my job, and that was a hard thing. I think losing my job as a man was harder than any other one thing that I've lost. And we can come back to that on another day, I guess, but that was, dude, that was that wrecked me to my core. Losing my job is like, I don't know who I am. I lost my identity
Yeah.
when I lost my job. Like, all I know
Well,
how
it's
to
just
do
the
is work
man.
hard.
It's the man in you that was like, I lost how I'm
Yeah,
supposed to provide, how I'm supposed to
yeah,
be security and
yeah.
all of that. And
It
so,
wrecked me, and that was jeez Louise. I hated every minute of that season. But I thought about going to a counselor just to get through that. I'm over here thinking how selfish I must be. Because I lost my dad. That was hard. I ain't go through a grieving class. I didn't feel like I needed a grieving class. I lost my job, and then I'm over here crying more because I lost my job. And like, that's how I felt. I'm thinking, man, I must be. How selfish am I? But
yeah, but I don't think of it like that because I think the job, as bad as it is to say the job is now, the job is about the future. The job is,
yeah,
well, how am I going to provide? How am I going to support my family? Whereas with
right,
your dad, it was coming, and it was like,
yeah,
not that it's easy, but it also was with your faith. He's better off. It
yeah,
doesn't make it easier for you, but he's not in a hospital bed. Mom's not watching him. I'm not having to, see my dad struggle and just to live. Whereas losing the job this is now. This is
yeah,
hitting me. I need help right now.
yeah,
And I think with dad, for me, there was just a lot of time where I put it on the back burner and we had cope, and it was I don't really have time
hmm,
to deal with it. And so I don't know if I can say I dealt with it the right way or even truly dealt with it. Yeah. So, but it was like, it wasn't like there was some, but there's not a right way. And then anybody who tries to tell you that there is an idiot.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the only wrong way is to just act like it didn't happen and go on. I mean, you got to sit there and I'm not saying you got to go listen to the Alan Jackson
Yeah.
CD and put yourself through it. Some
Right.
people love that. Some people, that's how they deal with it, is they sit in the sadness of it, and that's kind of how they, and that's fine. But for me, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to just sit there and be like, oh, this is tough. Like, this sucks. Like, I want to make myself cry every day. Like, no, I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I
I
think about it, I'm gonna deal with it. And then, but when I'm not thinking about it, I'm not gonna just put myself in that spot to deal with it.
yeah. I don't. I am a crier, but I'm not a sit around and wallow cry. And I don't know how. I do feel sorry for myself sometimes, and I can really give it a good go. When I really commit to crying, I can ugly cry like the best of them. But but I don't just sit around and think I'm going to be sad today, and I'm going to camp out here, and I'm going to look at myself in the mirror, and most of the time that really helps. If you, oh, I'm so sad, and just look at
Yeah.
yourself and fuel your own fire of sadness and how you look crying. But man, there is something to it. I used to, not long ago, like literally telling Casey, like, I don't like being sad. I remember telling counselors, I don't want to be sad. I would rather be mad. I would rather be angry. I would rather rage than sit in tears, because I really believe that tears didn't do nothing for me. Like, after I'm angry, after I'm mad, you understand my point. Maybe you don't agree with it. Maybe I was wrong for it.
Actually,